morning, sir. Good morning.
Better.
Thank you, sir.
So you are Pragya from Lucknow.
Yes, sir.
Before we talk about Pragya from Lucknow, I would like to know, do you know something about Pragya Sadhvi?
Yes, sir. Sir,
कौन है?
sir, she's some political leader, and obviously she pursued her spiritual aspect also. I'm not really aware of it, sir.
You're not really aware.
Yeah, but she was in the news, like somewhere.
Is she holding some office?
I'm not sure, sir. I'm
She's a
sorry.
member of parliament
Yeah, okay.
from Madhya Pradesh. Okay, and now first we would like to know Pragya Bajpai from Lucknow.
Yes.
Tell us about yourself.
Sir, okay, sir. My name is Pragya Bajpai, as you know, and I'm a native of Uttar Pradesh. I completed my graduation in the later half of 2020 from Lady Shriram College of Commerce, which is in DU. And in my free time, I like to do dancing, and I'm also planning to take up traveling as my hobby because I think it would be a very enriching experience for myself.
You studied commerce
Yes, sir.
from Lady Shriram College, Delhi.
Yes, sir.
That's very prestigious college.
Yes, sir.
First question, do you think it's in the present days it is still desirable to have separate colleges for girls and separate colleges for boys? Because Lady Shriram College is exclusive for women, if I
Yes,
am
sir.
correct.
Yes, sir.
Do you think the colleges should be separate?
Sir, I don't think the colleges should be separate because I feel, especially coming from a girls' college, I feel we get a greater push. I think it's mainly women standing up for other women to, help them attain their goals in a better way. So the opportunities, I think, are very wide when the colleges are being divided on the basis of gender. That's what I feel.
Okay, who was Lady Shriram?
Sir, I'm not sure. Sir, can I take a guess? I think
please.
she was wife or
I don't know. I am not aware. I just wanted to know whether you know it or not, because you studied
Because
in that
there
college.
is Shriram College of Commerce, which is a co-ed college, and in the memory of her wife, I think the sir established Lady Shriram College.
Okay, now you are from Lucknow.
Yes, sir.
So, and you heard about, and you are Bajpai. Have you heard about Mr. Atal Bihari Bajpai?
Yes, sir.
कौन है?
So he was the Prime Minister and head of BJP in the 90s. He was.
उनको कोई अवार्ड दिया है गवर्नमेंट ने?
Sir, if I'm not wrong, I think Bharat Ratna.
भारत रत्न।
Yes, sir.
अच्छा, एक बात है, भारत रत्न की बात की आपने, तो इससे आपसे एक सवाल पूछते हैं।
Yes, sir.
आज तक महात्मा गांधी जी को भारत रत्न क्यों नहीं दिया गया?
Sir, I think उनको मिला था, but उन्होंने deny कर दिया था.
नहीं बेटा, मिला नहीं।
Okay, I'm sorry.
क्योंकि जब ये भारत रत्न बनाया गया था, तो एक रूल था कि इट विल बी गिवन ओनली टू पोस्टह्यूमसली, जो मरणोपरांत दिया जाएगा।
Okay, sir.
और उसके लिए बहुत लोगों को दे दिया गया। जब रूल बाद में बदला, तब उनके नीचे महात्मा गांधी को रखना लोगों को वाजिब नहीं लगा।
Okay, sir.
Then it was decided Mahatma Gandhi was far above Bharat Ratna also. What changes have come to UP after Mr. Yogi taking over as Chief Minister, especially from a woman's point of view?
So I think a lot of schemes have been launched for women. For example, Mission Shakti, and there's a scholarship scheme also being launched, I think, to empower women, especially in the social aspect, and also to, the work has also been done on the safety aspect. For example, the concept of pink booths has been introduced. So I think
What is that concept?
So lady police are being appointed at those points, and there is a women helpline number also, and there is a very famous Chauraha Das Nabbe, which is located in Lucknow, which specially caters to the needs of women.
And I understand UP is taking special steps to
Yes, sir.
increase industrialization of
Yes,
Uttar
sir.
Pradesh. Can you name some new industries being set up, or new industrial towns being set up, or something of this sort?
Sir, recently I heard that our Honorable Chief Minister, he's planning to, take UP on the path of 1 trillion economy. So he's been shifting the workforce, which is there in the agriculture sector, to the manufacturing and the industrial sector, and especially I think it's for the electronics and other sectors. I'm not really sure of the industries that have been established, but this is all I know.
Electronics कहाँ पे लगा रहे हैं यूपी में?
What's that?
इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स में कहाँ
Sir,
लगा
I'm
है?
not sure.
नोएडा, सैमसंग का बहुत बड़ा प्लांट लगा।
Okay.
Okay. अब हम थोड़ा सा और आगे बढ़ते हैं।
Yes, sir.
Your father is working in which department?
So the state revenue department,
Revenue.
Chakbandi to be specific.
Okay, revenue.
Yes.
Now, we'll ask about. Tell me something what. First, tell me the difference between monetary policy and fiscal policy.
So monetary policy basically deals with the money supply in the economy, whereas it is being handled by the RBI, and it uses various tools such as the repo rate, various rates, policy rates, and other than that reserve rates, which is being used to infuse or suck out the liquidity from the economy. Whereas on the other hand, the fiscal policy is being dealt with the government, and it uses tax rates and all those to control the liquidity.
Can you give me some examples? What changes have been brought up in monetary policy and what the important changes in the fiscal policy?
So recently, considering the high inflation rate, especially because of the disruption in the supply chain, the rates are being revised and they are being increased so that the liquidity which was infused in the economy at the time of the pandemic, it is being they are trying to inject, they are trying to absorb it back so that the inflation is being controlled. And other than that, coming to the fiscal policy, the government is also trying to reduce the tax rates on import of gold duty and all that. So,
What about sovereign gold bond?
Sir, I'm not able to recall at the moment.
What about PLI scheme of the government?
Production line
Yeah,
incentive.
what is that?
Sir, it's basically, it will give an incentive to the manufacturing sector. Certain sectors have been decided, for example, electronics and other. So as I said, to bring the labor force from the agriculture sector to the manufacturing sector, they'll be provided incentive on the additional production and sales.
Why our government is giving so much of focus on manufacturing industry? Because traditionally for the last
Yes,
three-fold decades,
Yes,
we have
sir.
been more or less focusing on our service industries.
Yes.
Now suddenly the government has changed its focus area,
Yes,
and
sir.
we are interested in giving thrust to our manufacturing sector.
Yes,
Why
sir.
so?
So because as we know, the share of the service sector in the GDP has increased substantially, but the share of the GDP in the manufacturing sector in the GDP has not increased, and plus the labor force which is there in the agriculture is more than what is required by the sector. And I think on a larger scale, to provide a thrust to the economy and to give a thrust to the capital formation, more and more labor needs to be diverted to the manufacturing sector so that the share of the manufacturing sector in the GDP gets increased, and we are at par with the other developed economies.
Okay, how has COVID
Yes, sir.
impacted the entire world economy and the Indian economy, and what steps are being taken by our government and the governments of the world
Yes, sir.
to mitigate the impact?
Okay, sir. Sir, I think COVID was definitely a black swan event, and the measures that were taken the immediate measures that were taken were there was a complete lockdown and complete shutdown, not only in India but all over the world. So obviously it disrupted the supply and the demand, and many industries which are not doing that well, which are like small and medium scale industries, they suffered a lot because of it. Many people lost jobs. Even the migrant laborers, they had to return to their homeland, and so these are the problems mainly faced by the Indian as well as the world economy. And coming on to the steps that the RBI has taken in the recent past to overcome the shocks of the pandemic would be the GSEP, the Government Securities Acquisition Program, also the on-tap lending to the sectors which are the priority sectors such as the health sector or the tourism sector, which suffered a lot because of the pandemic. Other than that, there's a targeted long-term repo operations, basically to suck out to inject the liquidity in the economy.
The government की vaccination policy में क्या step लिया?
So I think India performed really well when it comes to the vaccination policy, because I think we are one of the top nations, because considering the population that we have to serve, I think India performed really well. Majority of the population was administered with the first as well as the second dose of the vaccine within a very reasonable time.
What is the current economic scenario after Ukraine and Russia war?
Yes, sir. Sir, initially the supply chains were disrupted very badly, so the government and the RBI had to take accommodative stance. But now, since the prices are softened a bit, as in the recent news, the government is still trying to move to the neutral stance and suck out the liquidity which was existing in the economy. And
What are the chances of the world going into recession?
Sir, I have to read about it.
Okay. Do you think India will go into recession?
Sir, I don't think, because our GDP is growing at an appropriate pace, I would say. Not as much as required, but considering the other economies, especially in the Southeast Asian nations, I think it's doing comparatively well.
What is China plus 1%?
Sir, I don't know.
Okay. Okay. You want to join RBI?
Yes, sir.
Tell me, what are the functions of Reserve Bank?
Sir, the first and the most important function of RBI is definitely RBI is the issuer of the currency, and it also manages the monetary policy. Other than that, it acts as a debt manager for the government. It also regulates the payment and settlement system of the country, and it also regulates and supervises the banking system. And it also acts as a banker to the other banks and the lender of the last resort.
What do you mean by lender of the last?
So, for example, facilities like MSF and all, when the liquidity of the banks dries out, they reach out to RBI for and they sell their they dip into their SLR and sell it to lend it to the RBI and then purchase a return.
Okay, speak for 2 minutes. What are the current challenges being faced by Reserve Bank?
So current challenges is definitely one of them is inflation targeting. So I think there are the other would be regulatory arbitrage, especially with respect to NBFCs and other systemically important institutions.
How the Indian currency moving in the last few days, few weeks, and what steps are being taken by the government to?
Yes, sir. Sir, I think the Indian currency is being very volatile. There was a great depreciation of our currency because of the volatility in the forex market, and I think RBI has taken several steps to overcome that, especially to increase our forex reserve so that the demand for dollar drops and our currency appreciates. So there has been, especially for FPI investment in debt, flexible tenure of debts, government securities has been launched. For example, 7-year and 10-year government securities. Other than that, the requirement for FCNR and NRE accounts to be kept for SLR and CRR has been reduced, so that more and more forex is being brought into the country.
You use the word FPI. You
Yes,
tell me
sir.
what is the basic difference between FPI and FDI?
Yes, sir. So FPI stands for Foreign Portfolio Investor. So basically, they invest in the financial assets of the country, and they do not take controlling position or the management position of the country. Whereas FDI stands for Foreign Direct Investment. So they invest in the productive assets or the capital assets of the country, and they tend to take management control in the economy.
Which is more stable and which is more useful from the country's point?
Sir, it's definitely FDI. It's more stable. Because the FPI, it moves in and out of the country very quickly as and when the economic scenario changes.
What is hot money?
So hot money is the money which moves in and out of the country.
Mostly by FPIs.
Yeah, yes, sir.
They move at this side
Yes, sir.
that they move out
Yes,
and direction. Okay. Now we'll go to some other areas.
Yes, sir.
What is GAAP?
So generally accepted accounting principles.
क्या होते हैं?
So these are the principles which govern the accountings of different firms.
What is the difference
They're the
between
principles.
cash flow and fund flow?
I'm not sure.
Okay. What is ROE?
Return on investment.
आपकी hobbies आपने बोला क्या डांस
Sir,
करते हैं?
I really enjoy dancing. Yes, sir.
Enjoy dancing.
Yeah.
किस तरह की डांसिंग करते हैं?
So freestyle dancing. I used to watch movies a lot, and then I used to watch Madhuri Dixit, and thereafter.
अच्छा टीवी सीरियल में डांसिंग, डांस इंडिया डांस टाइप देखते हो?
No, sir, just Bollywood movies and all. So
Do you read
I
any
think it's
newspaper?
very,
Okay. Do you read any newspaper?
yes sir, currently I'm reading the Economic Times.
Economic Times.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me who is the publisher of Economic Times?
Sir, I'm not aware.
Bennett Goldman.
Okay.
Portion of Economic Times is your favorite?
Sir, the editorial page.
Editorial page. What was the editorial today?
Sir, I haven't read today's
Yesterday's
newspaper.
editorial.
So I think it talked about, sir, I have to recall.
Why do you want to join RBI?
Sir, there's a personal story related to it. So, sir, there are basically 3 points which I'd like to mention. First is, there was a quiz conducted when I was in my school. So we made it to the top 6 teams. The quiz was conducted by RBI itself. Thereafter, I developed an interest towards the organization. So this would be like the first point. The second, I think it would really contribute to my growth trajectory, and it would personally help me in attaining my goals. Thirdly and lastly, I think the working of the RBI in the complex Indian economy as we see currently, I think that inspires me and I want to be a part of the process.
What is financial inclusion?
Financial inclusion. Sir, it refers to providing of the banking services to the unserved or the underserved people and the unbanked regions of the country.
Why the government is giving so much importance to this?
Sir, because I think a lot more than 68% of the country's population resides in rural areas, and they are not that financially literate, or some of them don't even have a bank account with the banks. So I think to bring more and more people under the financial ambit, this step has been taken, and it will definitely channelize their savings and devote them to productive avenues.
RBI has given some guidelines about lending apps,
Digital lending.
digital lending
Yes,
apps.
sir.
Can you tell me about that?
Yes, sir. So basically, sir, it is for the regulated entities. So RBI has said that any transaction between the regulated entity and the borrower should happen without the participation of the lending service providers or any third party. And the current loan limits or the interest rates cannot be revised without the prior consent of the borrower. And if any fees has to be paid by the regulated entity to these lending service providers, it has to be paid directly by the regulated entity without the participation of the customer.
Is RBI trying to take some steps to guide public to save themselves from frauds,
Yes,
digital
sir.
frauds, etc.?
Yes, sir.
कौन कैसे कर रहे हैं?
Sir, there was a booklet launched a while back, which is Be Aware, which is on the modus operandi of financial frauds, which is being launched in the public interest. Other than that, RBI has also launched the RBI Integrated Ombudsman Scheme. So by combining the existing 3 schemes for the banking ombudsman, NBFCs and the digital lending, so that more and more customers, they register their grievances and the steps could be taken accordingly.
Can you think of some brand ambassador of RBI who's
Sir.
trying to help people save themselves from
Yes,
frauds?
sir. So one is Amitabh Bachchan, especially during the financial literacy week, which was in February. There was this campaign launched, RBI कहता है, जानकार बनिए, सतर्क रहिए, wherein it launched like snippets of 30 seconds long, and they picked up certain topic and the awareness was provided in a very layman's language around that topic.
Okay, tell me, why should I select you, not the girl who just left before you?
Okay. Sir, I think I possess the qualities that would help the RBI in longer term. I think my educational background will play a leverage to that. Other than that, I can very well manage myself and people around me and keep them motivated. And also, sir, I feel that I am very open to constructive criticism, which is very required in a formal setup. So,
Who was the first deputy lady governor of Reserve Bank?
I'm not sure.
You know, there have been, has there ever been a lady governor of
No,
Reserve
sir.
Bank of India? How many deputy lady governors have been there?
Sir, I'm not aware.
3.
Okay.
To the best of my knowledge, maybe
Okay.
you can check it out.
Okay.
I think there are
I'll read about it.
There are 3.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. I'll again think something.
So, while looking into a balance sheet of a bank,
Yes,
what
sir.
ratios you will look into? What ratios are the important ratios you will look into?
So the debt equity ratio and the CASA ratio, and the credit to deposit ratio. That's all I can.
So what are these? Can you explain?
So the debt equity ratio, it basically shows the relationship between the debt the company uses for its capital and the equity it has appointed for its capital. The CASA is basically, it stands for current account savings account. So how much of that is there with the bank, and the credit to deposit ratio is again how much credit they have lent and how much deposits they have accepted from the customers.
Okay. So you may have heard about the provisioning coverage ratio.
Yes, sir, PCR.
What it is?
Sir, I don't know.
Interest coverage ratio. These are the terms related to the banking sector.
Okay, I'll read about it, sir. I've not read ratios.
In nowadays, there is RBI is working on this fintech.
Yes, sir.
So what is fintech and how RBI is working on this? What steps RBI have taken?
So fintech basically it leverages technology to provide the financial services, and recently RBI has also established RBI Innovation Hub, which is a body which is completely devoted towards promoting the environment for innovation. It will bring together academic institutions, startups and all to leverage the technology and render the services in a better manner.
So can you give some example of fintech currently existing
Yes, sir.
in Indian financial system?
So one would be of course the digital lending apps. So can I take 2-3 seconds to recall?
Yes, no issue.
So the features other than that which is launched by NPCI such as UPI and all, which are aimed to to get the financial inclusion reach the larger milestone. Sir, that's all I can do.
Yes, like NPCI launched many things, UPI,
IMPS,
IMPS, all are example of fintech. Okay. So currently this Fed rate hike is in news.
Yes, sir.
So it is in news constantly since
Yes, sir.
it is Fed has started the
Yes, sir.
increasing the rate.
Yes, sir.
So now also in few days this again Fed policy meet is there. So what will be the impact of Indian economy if Fed
Sir,
rate?
Yes, sir. So basically to counter the inflationary pressures, Fed has been increasing its rate, and the impact would be there would be a lot of FPI outflows from the country, and it would create a volatility in the forex market.
Why
That's
this FPI will
So because
pull
they are-
out the money from Indian market?
Yes, sir. So because they are getting better interest rates in the US market.
Okay. Also, RBI is constantly saying that there is bubble in the Indian stock market. So what is that? Why RBI is saying this
So
again?
I'm not
again?
aware of it.
Okay. Okay. So have you ever heard about neo banking?
Yes, sir.
What is it?
So basically, neobanks are the banks which do not have any physical existence. They basically bridge the gap between the traditional banking services and the tech-savvy customers. So they use just digital apps to lend their services. Currently, to the best of my knowledge, they are not under the regulatory ambit of RBI.
Okay. So this what is microfinance?
Microfinance. So microfinance is basically a collateral-free loan which is being provided to the smaller sections of the society. For example, people who have income of household income of less than or equal to 3 lakh rupees, they are being lent money under such institutions.
Just to add to microfinancing,
Yes.
have you heard about self-help groups?
Yes, sir.
What are they?
So basically, they are a group of 15 to 20 people, women specifically. So they pool their savings and they deposit their savings into a financial institution, which help them in better financial management. And out of that pooling, they lend it to their members, and there is a added liability on every member to pay back to the institution. Otherwise, it creates a liability on.
You know
all
the name of the
members
person who is supposed to be the creator of this concept of
No, sir.
self-help? Bangladesh Gramin Bank से related थे?
I'm
Just
sure,
one
sir.
thing. Okay, now I'll ask you one more question.
Yeah.
Recently, it just crept into my mind.
Okay, sir.
RBI has been asking banks, Indian banks, to open lot of, Vostro accounts.
Yes, sir.
Tell me, what are these Vostro accounts and what are Nostro accounts?
Sir, Vostro is basically, especially in an effort to internationalize Indian rupee, the RBI has allowed the international trade settlements to be done in Indian rupee. With respect to that, we can the banks which are existing in other countries, especially the sanctioned nations such as Russia and Iran, from which we can supply crude oil and other sources. So they can open their Vostro accounts with our banks, and the settlement can take place there. If they have surplus funds, they can also invest in our government securities, and we can do the same. So, so their accounts with our bank is, I think, Vostro, whereas the opposite of it, for example, our accounts with their banks would be termed as Nostro accounts.
The third account also. Nostro,
Loro.
Vostro and Loro accounts. Okay.
Sir.
Why now? What will be the advantage to Indian companies if they trade in rupees?
Yes, sir. Sir, definitely the requirement for forex will fall down, so it will benefit the importers, and also, as I said, that since there are certain sanctioned nations from which we cannot supply certain essential commodities such as crude oil. So
Okay, I'll interrupt you here. Have you heard about the name Samarkand?
Yes, sir.
क्या
The
है?
SCO summit is being held there.
अच्छा, हो गई अब तो परसों हो गई।
Yes.
हाँ, who is going to be the president of chairperson of SCO in the year 2020?
Sir, India.
India. Is there any possibility of India resuming its trade with Iran, especially on the import of oil?
So, especially with respect to, as I told, like internationalization of rupee, India is planning to continue trade with certain sanctioned nations, including Russia and Iran.
How the crude prices, this effect of war and this stopping of oil
Yes, sir.
from Russia to Europe
Yes, sir.
has affected India?
Sir, I'm not really sure, but I can I still...
Please go
Yes,
ahead,
sir.
make a guess.
Sir, I think since a lot of sanction has been put on Russian exports, the same crude oil that was supposed to be directed to UK, I think that would come to India, and India would get
Increased
yes.
substantially from nearly $2 billion to, I think, I don't know the exact figure, maybe $13 billion or so. And initially there was a lot of opposition from the West and America,
Yes, sir.
that why India is, then our government took a firm stand that we are trying to watch our own interest.
Yes, sir.
Please, something.
So one more thing is in news related to RBI, the central bank digital currency.
Yes, sir.
So what is it and what will be the benefit and disadvantages of that?
Okay, sir. So it's basically, it will be an alternative to the fiat currency, and it would be a liability of RBI. The advantages would be, sir, the cost that is being incurred by RBI on the printing of the currency and the handling of notes, I think that would be eliminated, and I think a lot many people would be brought under the financial inclusion, so that would increase. But the volatility which is existing in the crypto market, that would be countered if CBDC is being introduced. And I think the disadvantages could be, the challenges rather that it might face would be, the people are not very accepting of it. There is still a very hazy picture around it. So I think that could be a challenge and a problem associated with it.
And any other important benefit of that?
So it would decentralize the whole process.
It will be easily traceable also.
Yes,
RBI can monitor
Yes, sir.
currency, hard currency, they are not able to
Yes,
monitor
sir.
who has the hard currency.
Since it's
So,
based on
yes,
distributed
yes.
ledger technology.
What are hard currencies?
So hard currency, I'm not sure, but I think coins and all.
No.
Okay.
Hard currencies which are readily acceptable in the world.
Okay.
Maybe dollar,
Okay, sir.
pound, euro.
Okay, sir.
How has been the movement of Indian rupee against currencies like euro and other foreign currency other than dollar?
Sir, I'm not sure.
Against dollar?
Sir, it has been depreciating.
So what steps have been taken by the RBI to shore up its value?
Sir, sir, as I mentioned, they are planning to increase the
Is RBI buying or selling dollars in the market to stabilize rupee?
selling dollars.
उससे क्या फर्क पड़ेगा?
So forex is reducing. Currently, I think it stands at like by the end of the previous year, it was somewhere around 633 billion, but now it's just 550 billion to the best of my knowledge, sir.
$550.
Yeah, so forex is being dropping very sharply.
Why there has been no cap on FCN deposit being removed by the RBI?
Sir, I didn't get
You
the
know,
question.
FCN deposit you
Yes,
heard about?
sir.
क्या होता है? Foreign currency non
Yeah, so they're like fixed
RBI
deposit.
has removed the cap on their interest.
Yes, sir.
Why so?
So because then more and more people would be willing to deposit their currencies with our banks. So,
Foreign deposits will come into
Yes,
the
sir.
country
And
and
the forex
will
will
shore up
boost.
our foreign
Yes.
reserves.
exchange.
What constitutes foreign reserves with the Reserve Bank of India?
Sir, it's foreign currency assets, the special drawing rights with the IMF, the gold, and so one more thing which I'm not able to remember right now.
Gold is supposed to be one of the big contributors of current account deficit. You agree?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then how can we wean away our public? India is the largest consumer of gold in the world. I mean, government has introduced something called sovereign gold bond.
Yes, sir.
You know something about it?
Sir, I think. So just 2-3 seconds.
Please go ahead.
Sir, I think the government has asked the public to deposit their gold with the government, and in return of that, they'll be offered bonds which they can even trade in the secondary market. So, I think the limit is.
Please go and read it again.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Which is the purest, form of gold? कितने कैरेट का होता है? पता है?
24
Being a girl.
24 carat. I'm not really
24
interested in
24
jewelry.
carats. और jewelry जो बनती है वो
No, I'm
22 carats. Jewelry is
Okay.
22 carats and
So, two more questions I will
Yes,
ask.
sir.
We were having RRB already,
Yes.
regional rural banks. So, why these payment banks and small finance banks were introduced?
Yes, sir. Sir, so payment banks and small finance banks are differentiated banks. They do not offer all the banking services, and they cater to the niche segment of the society. And I think RRBs, they were making losses, as per my knowledge, and SFBs and payment banks, they are also taking technology in the picture for rendering their services. So
RRBs can do the same thing, that they can also introduce the technology, and why they specifically this?
sir, I'm not sure.
Okay. So one more thing, that retail direct scheme you have heard.
Yes, sir.
What it is?
Sir, it's being introduced by RBI to increase the participation of retail investors in the government securities market.
Okay.
So, retail investors, they can directly open their retail direct gilt account with RBI and can take part in the non-competitive bidding of the government securities.
Okay. And any minimum or maximum amount of investment?
So, I don't know. I'm sorry, sir.
Okay. And one last question was
Yes,
that
sir.
why finance ministry cannot play a role of the central bank? Why we need why we need a central bank?
So, because it would be a clash of interest, because then they would just print more money to finance their deficit. I think that could be the reason.
So you are saying that if finance ministry will hold the role of central bank, they will start printing the money.
Yes, sir.
have you heard about bad bank?
Yes, sir.
What is that?
Sir, it basically acquires the NPAs of other banks and then carry on the securitization.
What is
of
the new name given to it in India?
Sir, Asset Reconstruction Company,
Yeah.
and recently NARCL, and they have been opened for performing the job.
Okay. How will it mitigate the problem of NPA for banks? Commercial?
So they won't be required to devote greater time and resources towards, they can just sell their NPAs to these asset reconstruction companies and focus on their core banking services.
To add to my friend, he asked you about this technological bank. I'll ask you, what was the need for small finance banks when RRBs were already there?
I think.
What is the need of small finance banks?
So to basically cater to the sections which are in need of,
I
like
think
the
this is
small
one
ticket
very
loans.
important rider in that,
Yes, sir.
that their loans, 50% of their loans have to be below the size of 25 lakh rupees. And of
Yes,
course,
sir.
they have to lend 75% of the money to the private sector.
Priority sectors.
Even RRBs will be lending 75% to
Yes,
the
sir.
private sector, but they can give some bigger loans to the private sector. But
Okay.
as small finance banks will give minimum 50% of the loans to loans of smaller amounts.
Okay,
That's why
sir.
the RBI wants to encourage. Okay, that's
So
all.
I'll keep that in mind.